My name is Captain Nora Huber, 32 years old, United States Army. After 2 tours in Afghanistan, I thought I'd survived every battlefield until I came home 2 days early. My 7-year-old son ran to me, pale, shaking, and whispered, "Mommy, hide in the closet." That's when my real war began. What would you do if you heard those words from your child? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for stories where silence, discipline, and truth always win. 2 days early. That was supposed to be a gift, a surprise homecoming after 9 months in Afghanistan. The drive down from Denver International Airport felt like it always did after deployment. Thin mountain air in my lungs, the peaks cutting sharp against a blue October sky, each mile a promise that the noise was finally behind me. In the passenger seat sat a small cardboard box from the base exchange, a model F-22 Raptor for Leo, my 7-year-old. He'd circled it in a catalog months ago, and I'd promised myself I'd hand it to him in person. The sun was low when I pulled into the driveway of our house in Colorado Springs. For a moment, everything looked perfect. Fresh snow on Pikes Peak, warm light spilling from the living room curtains. I cut the engine and listened. No music, no laughter, just the tick of a cooling engine and the steady beat of my own pulse. The front door was unlocked. Ben never left it that way. Inside, the air was unnaturally cold, the kind of still chill that makes the hairs on your neck stand up. I waited for the scent of beef stew, his welcome home tradition. Instead, a cloying sweetness clawed at my throat. Tuberose. Not mine. On the coffee table stood 2 half-empty glasses of red wine. One rim was smeared with crimson lipstick. By the entryway, a pair of red stilettos lay tipped on their sides like spent shells. I knew those shoes. I'd bought them for my sister Clara last Christmas. My training kicked in. Situational awareness, assess the scene, locate the non-combatant. From the stairwell came a soft shuffle. Leo stood there, small and pale, fingers clutching the banister. He didn't shout, "Mommy." He didn't run. He crept down 2 steps, eyes wide with something I'd only seen on battlefields. He tugged my sleeve, voice a ghost of a whisper. "Mommy, hide in the closet. Dad has a guest." No questions, no hesitation. Orders from a child shouldn't carry that weight, but they did. I nodded once. He led me down the hall to the walk-in closet, the one that smelled of cedar and old college sweaters. The door clicked shut. Darkness. I slid between coats, listening to the blood in my ears. Then footsteps. The bedroom door opened. Clara's laugh, light, careless, cut through the silence. "I should go," she giggled. "What's the rush?" Ben's voice, low, familiar, intimate. "Stay a little longer." Aspen. He mentioned Aspen, a trip he'd promised Leo and me. My fist pressed against my mouth. Every instinct screamed to move, to confront, but another voice, the one drilled into me by years of command briefs, took over. Hold position, gather intel, don't engage without cover. When the front door finally closed and her engine faded, I counted to 60, then emerged. Leo was still on the stairs, small hands white-knuckled around the railing. I knelt to him. "Good job, buddy," I whispered. "Grab your jacket." We slipped out into the cold night, the Raptor model still sealed in its box. At a 24-hour diner off I-25, I ordered pancakes he didn't touch. Under the buzz of neon lights, I watched him stir syrup with his fork. Silent. No tears, just the quiet shock of a child who has seen too much. In the Army, we say secure the asset first. That night, my asset was a 7-year-old boy with tired eyes. The mission had changed. The battlefield was home. People think betrayal happens in one violent instant. A slammed door, a shouted word, a moment that splits a life clean in half. It doesn't. In reality, it creeps. It starts as hairline cracks beneath the paint, small enough to ignore until the structure finally gives way. Looking back, I could trace every fault line that had led to that night. Every small, polished moment of dismissal that I had mistaken for normal. The first change came wrapped in politeness. When I returned from a shorter rotation months earlier, the welcome mat I'd bought, the one that read, "Welcome home, soldier," was gone. In its place sat a garish floral rug, cheerful and wrong. I remember standing in the doorway, boots still dusty, staring at it. "Where's the old one?" I asked. "It was getting worn out," Ben replied without looking up from his laptop. "Clara found this one. Brighter, don't you think?" I forced a smile, told myself it was just a mat. In the field, you learn to conserve emotional ammunition. Don't waste energy on what isn't mission critical. But small things add up. Then the candles changed. My lavender and chamomile swapped for Clara's heavy tuberose. The house stopped smelling like calm. It started smelling like someone else's life. The birthday package arrived while I was deployed. At first, I felt touched. Clara rarely remembered dates. Inside were silk pajamas, delicate and expensive. A size too small. The note wasn't addressed to me. To Ben. Help my sister feel like a woman again after all those dry months in the desert. Love, Clara. My hands shook as I folded the fabric back into the box. It wasn't the insult. Soldiers learn to stomach worse. It was the calculation. The precision of cruelty disguised as kindness. When I confronted Ben on our next call, his reaction was practiced. "Nora, you're overreacting. You know how she is. Thoughtless." She addressed it to you. "You're reading too much into it." Reading too much into it. The phrase echoed like gunfire in an empty corridor. I'd heard it before, from my father, when I'd called after an argument about campaign optics. He'd sighed, voice heavy with the weight of self-importance. "Handle it quietly, Nora. You can't afford drama." Men like my father and Ben shared a language, polished, dismissive, precise. Every syllable built to remind me that my instincts, the very ones that kept me alive overseas, were a liability at home. Then came the money. One night, sorting bills online from my cot in Kandahar, I saw it. A $5,000 transfer from our joint savings. Recipient, C. Huber. I called immediately. "Ben, did you move $5,000 out of our account?" "Relax, I loaned it to Clara. She's opening an art gallery. Great opportunity." "That's our down payment fund." "It's just money, Nora. Why do you always make things difficult?" "It's just money." The words landed heavier than mortar. Because it wasn't just money. It was partnership, trust, respect, all gone casual as small talk. When I reached out to my father, hoping for a sliver of sense, I got the same cold calculation. "Do not create a scandal. You're an officer. Act like one." That was the moment I understood. I would get no reinforcements from family. No air support. No backup. Still, I didn't retaliate. I documented every email, every transfer, every gift receipt. I wrote dates in a small green notebook I kept tucked in my ruck. A soldier doesn't move without intel. The breach wasn't sudden. It was methodical. Step by step, they dismantled the perimeter of trust I'd built around my family. But what they didn't realize was that every breach exposes the blueprint of an enemy. And I was already learning theirs. In combat, you learn to separate pain from action. There's the moment you get hit, and the moment you decide what to do about it. That night, standing in my own hallway, hearing my husband's voice tangled with my sister's laugh, I felt the first moment hit clean through me. The second came when Leo whispered, "Hide." The closet was dark and close, filled with cedar and dust and the faint trace of Ben's cologne. My fingers brushed the sleeves of his coats as I sank to the floor, heart hammering. I focused on the drills they taught us at the academy. Control your breathing, slow the panic. Outside, the creak of floorboards, then her laugh again. "You really think she'll be back soon?" Clara teased. "Not for days," Ben answered. "She always calls first." The sound of their ease was worse than any explosion. In Afghanistan, you expect the blast. At home, it feels like the ground itself betrayed you. When the door closed and the silence finally returned, I stepped out. Leo was waiting at the stairs, small and pale, clutching his stuffed bear to his chest. His eyes searched my face. "Can we go now?" "Yes, buddy. We're leaving." No yelling, no breaking things, just precision. I packed nothing. The only thing I carried was my son's hand. We drove through empty streets until the highway lights thinned and a lonely diner sign flickered against the dark. Inside, everything smelled like syrup and old coffee. The waitress didn't ask questions, just brought pancakes and a mug of something hot I didn't taste. Leo sat across from me, small fingers tracing circles in spilled sugar. For a while, neither of us spoke. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, steady and cruel. Then, in a whisper soft as wind through canvas, he said, "Daddy and Aunt Clara play a grown-up game." The words stopped me cold. I didn't ask for details. He was 7. He shouldn't have to carry them. He said if I told you, you'd be sad, and you'd never come home again. That was the hit. The one that went deeper than anything before. Not the betrayal itself, but that they'd weaponized a child's love to protect their lie. My hands trembled around the mug. I set it down carefully, like diffusing something live. "Leo," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you did the right thing telling me. I'm proud of you." He nodded, eyes wide, relief flooding his small face. Then he whispered, "Are we safe?" "We will be," I told him. "I promise." In the military, promises are currency. You don't spend them lightly. That one became my mission order. I paid the bill, left cash under the cup, and led Leo back to the car. He fell asleep before we hit the interstate, head resting against the window. The hum of the tires was a sound I knew. Movement, transition, escape. When we reached a cheap roadside motel, I checked us in under my own card, using my maiden name. Inside the small room, I locked the door, slid the deadbolt, and sat at the desk with a notepad from my pack. In Afghanistan, every op begins with an objective. That night, I wrote mine in clean block letters across the top of the page. Operation Sunrise. Secure safety, secure truth, secure future. 3 phases. I didn't know the steps yet, but I knew the mission. I stared at those words until my heartbeat slowed. The war overseas was done. But the next one, the one for my son's peace, for my own name, had just begun. Outside, dawn was still hours away. But for the first time that night, I believed it would come. The first rule of any operation is clarity of mission. I wasn't out for revenge, I was out for stability. My son needed safety, and safety required order. By sunrise, I had a legal pad filled with bullet points, arrows, and contingencies. I might have been sitting in a roadside motel with a sleeping 7-year-old, but mentally I was back in a briefing room, assembling assets, defining targets, mapping terrain. Phase 1. Find the right counsel. I refused to let my father's network handle this. The capital firms he trusted specialized in burying scandals, not protecting soldiers. I needed someone who spoke the same language I did. Procedure, proof, precision. After hours of searching military family forums, one name kept surfacing. Jessica Riley, former JAG Corps, now running a small independent practice in Denver. Her online bio was stripped of marketing fluff. 15 years in family law, specialized in military divorces, reputation. Efficient, unflinching. Exactly the kind of attorney who valued evidence over theatrics. When I called, her assistant patched me through immediately. Jessica's voice was calm, measured. "Captain Huber, I understand you're in transition from active deployment. Let's meet in person. Bring whatever documentation you have." I arrived at her office that afternoon, still in fatigues, Leo coloring quietly in the waiting area. Jessica took one look at me, extended a firm hand. "We'll keep emotions out of the file," she said. "Emotion loses cases. Facts win them." For the first time in weeks, I exhaled. Phase 2, secure the intel. We outlined a strategy the way commanders build a campaign plan. Identify evidence, preserve chain of custody, maintain legality. Nothing fabricated, nothing gray. If we were going to dismantle a lie, every line had to hold in court. Jessica slid a checklist across the desk. 1. Digital records, emails, texts, bank statements. 2. Character evidence, service evaluations, commendations. 3. Child impact, psychological assessment, drawings, statements. 4. Timeline, precise dates linking each infraction. You'll feel tempted to confront them, she warned. Don't. Observation is power. Surprise is leverage. That night I called Ben. My voice steady, detached. I'll stop by tomorrow to pick up some things for Leo. He sounded relieved, even smug. Of course. Take whatever you need. He thought he was dealing with a broken woman. He didn't realize he was dealing with a trained officer executing a plan. Phase 3. Field retrieval. The next morning, I drove back to the house. Clara greeted me with rehearsed guilt, eyes shiny, voice trembling just enough. Ben hovered behind her, tone dripping sympathy. Nora, we never meant to hurt you. I nodded once. I just need Leo's school records and a few personal files. They hovered in the kitchen while I moved through the house. In the office, I plugged a small encrypted flash drive into the desktop tower. Years in intelligence briefings had taught me how long data transfers take. 10 minutes for a full mirror of user directories, emails, attachments, cloud sync folders. I watched the progress bar crawl, each percent another layer of armor. When it finished, I pocketed the drive, grabbed a stack of Leo's favorite books, and left without another word. Phase 4. Assessment and allies. Back in the motel, I connected the drive to my laptop. The files opened like a wound. Hundreds of emails, subject lines reading, "Can't keep pretending, she'll never know." Custody strategy. Each message was a brick in the structure of betrayal, laid carefully over months. They weren't just disloyal. They were coordinating. The worst line came from Clara. Use her deployments, say she's detached. Judges sympathize with mothers who stay. I took screenshots, labeled each thread by date, built an index in Excel. No speculation, no anger, just evidence. Then I called Major Maria Garcia, my closest friend from West Point, now stationed at the Pentagon. I told her only what she needed to know. I need every performance review, every commendation, any proof of psychological fitness. Consider it done, she said. By evening, my inbox filled with scanned PDFs, commendations for leadership, marksmanship awards, spotless psych evaluations. Each document a counter-round against the narrative they plan to weaponize. Phase 5. Protect the asset. The final step was Leo. Jessica arranged an appointment with a licensed child psychologist specializing in family trauma. The waiting room was painted with murals of forests and clouds. Leo clutched my hand until the therapist knelt to his level. During the session, she asked him to draw his family. Later, she handed me the picture. Ben and Clara holding hands in the center, me drawn far away, and Leo small in the corner. I didn't cry. I simply slid it into a plastic sleeve. In war, every casualty report becomes a document. This was his. When I returned to the motel, I laid everything on the bed. Flash drive, printed emails, therapist summary, performance records. Each piece labeled, dated, cross-referenced. Jessica's final instruction echoed in my head. When the truth is this complete, you don't need to shout. You just need to show up. The operation was standing. All that remained was the confrontation, one conducted not with rage, but with binders, signatures, and the quiet authority of proof. When the day of mediation came, the sky over Denver was the flat gray of cold steel, the kind of weather that reminded me of staging fields before deployment. I arrived early, not because I was nervous, but because soldiers don't walk into battle late. Jessica was already there, papers aligned in precise stacks. Binder centered on the conference table. The tabs were color-coded. Emails, financials, child impact, service record. No theatrics, just evidence. Across from us, Ben and Clara sat side by side. He wore a professor's calm. She looked like she'd practiced contrition in a mirror. Their lawyer was young, expensive, confident in the way people are before reality lands. On a large video monitor at the end of the table, my father appeared. Perfect posture, senator's flag pin gleaming under soft office light. Even pixelated, his presence filled the room. "Let's proceed," his voice commanded. The mediator began with neutral formality, outlining the agenda. Then Ben's lawyer leaned forward, smile polished. "My clients deeply regret the distress caused. They simply wish to resolve this amicably." He slid a folder toward us. Inside, a proposed settlement, financial division favorable enough to appear generous. In return, joint custody and a non-disclosure clause for the sake of family privacy. "This is the best path forward." My father's voice boomed from the screen. "Think of Leo." They expected tears. They expected the weary soldier, cornered and grateful for scraps. Instead, I sat still. Years of command briefings had trained me for silence. Silence makes others reveal themselves. Jessica reached for the settlement with a calm precision, then pushed it back. From her case, she drew a thick binder and laid it between us. The sound it made when it hit the wood was small but final. "Before we discuss any terms," she said evenly, "I'd like to enter a few items into consideration." She flipped open the first tab, printed emails. Her voice remained steady as she read, each line an artillery strike. "I can't take it anymore, Clara. Living with her is like living with a robot. All duty, no heart. She's gone so much the boy barely knows her. We'll use that." Ben's face drained of color. Clara's fingers twisted the hem of her skirt. Their lawyer's pen froze mid-note. Jessica turned another page. "She won't fight back. She never does. She only follows orders." When she finished, she closed the binder softly, as if marking the end of a lesson. Then she placed a thinner folder on top, Leo's therapist report. "The child exhibits anxiety consistent with being forced to conceal information harmful to his mother," she read. "Recommendation: establish a stable, single residence environment." No one spoke. The mediator looked down, uncomfortable. Then Jessica lifted a laminated sheet, Leo's drawing. A simple house, 2 adults in the middle, a boy alone in the corner, and a uniformed woman far away. She said it in front of Ben and Clara without a word. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was total. You could hear the fluorescent hum overhead, the faint shuffle of papers. I waited until both of them looked at me. Then I spoke for the first time. My voice was calm, low, precise. "You have 10 minutes to sign our proposal. It grants me sole custody of my son, waives all financial claims, and establishes a no-contact perimeter of 500 yards for Ms. Huber. If not signed within 10 minutes, this record," I gestured to the binder, "and the audio of a certain phone call will be submitted to the appropriate review boards and media outlets." Ben's lawyer opened his mouth. Closed it again. My father's image froze for a second, then resumed. He didn't argue. He just gave a single curt nod. Jessica slid the papers across the table, pen poised. I didn't move, didn't speak, I simply watched. One by one, they signed. When it was over, I gathered the documents, stacked them neatly, and rose. There was no satisfaction, no triumph, only a quiet finality. In the Army, we're taught that the best battles are the ones won without firing a single round. This was one of them. When the signatures dried, so did the noise. No more calls from lawyers, no more late-night apologies or political advice disguised as parenting concern. Just silence. Clean, still, unfamiliar. It wasn't the kind that hides danger. It was the kind that finally lets you breathe. Leo and I moved into a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of Colorado Springs. Nothing fancy. Beige walls, a small balcony overlooking a row of aspens, and and enough room for his toys and my books. The first night, I tucked him in and waited for the inevitable question. It never came. He just whispered, "It's quiet here." "Yes, buddy," I said. "That's the point." In the mornings, we built new routines: cereal at the kitchen counter, school drop-offs without arguments, quiet walks to the nearby park. At first, I kept expecting a knock on the door, a new crisis, some unfinished thread from the old life to pull me back. But none came. For the first time in years, nothing required a response. One afternoon, the phone rang. My mother's number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But soldiers face what's in front of them, so I answered. Her voice was fragile, uncertain. "Nora, your father's furious. Clara isn't well. Can't you just be the bigger person?" For a moment, I felt the old instinct, the trained obedience, the desperate hope that this time she'd see me. But I remembered Leo sleeping soundly in the next room. The cost of silence was always paid by the innocent. "Mom," I said quietly, "I love you, but I can't come back to that. The price of being in this family is pretending, and I'm done pretending. If you ever want a relationship that's just us, no politics, no damage control, my door's open. Otherwise, I wish you peace." There was a long pause. Then the soft click of disconnection. For the first time, I didn't chase it. The next day, I submitted a formal request for transfer from active field duty to an instructional post at the Army Leadership Academy. When my commanding officer called me in, I expected skepticism. Instead, he closed the file and looked at me across the desk. "Captain Huber, I've read your record. You've carried more than most. Some battles," he said, "aren't fought on foreign soil. This decision isn't retreat. It's tactical redeployment." He extended his hand. I shook it, throat tight. There was no pity in his eyes, only respect. The kind that isn't given, only earned. Weeks passed. Papers turned to orders. My deployment gear went into storage, replaced by lesson plans and training manuals. In class, I taught cadets about ethics, field command, and quiet leadership. Lessons written in scar tissue, not ink. They called me ma'am with steady voices. It felt right. At home, Leo and I started baking cookies on Sundays. He measured flour like it was a science project. Sometimes, while the oven ticked, I'd catch him humming. Light, careless, unburdened. I'd forgotten how that sounded. Then came the letter. The handwriting was Ben's. I almost threw it out, but curiosity is a stubborn habit. Inside was a single page, blame disguised as reflection. Words like cold, calculating, unforgiving. I read it once, then folded it neatly, walked onto the balcony, and set it alight in a small metal bowl. The paper curled, turned black, and drifted into nothing. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength." Watching the ashes rise, I finally understood. This wasn't victory. It was equilibrium. The war was over. What remained was peace, quiet, deliberate, and entirely my own. Peace, I learned, isn't handed to you when the battle ends. It's something you rebuild, slowly, deliberately, like clearing debris after a blast. And sometimes the hardest part is accepting that you deserve it. The first few months after the mediation felt like walking through fog. Every sound, every routine was unfamiliar. But each morning, Leo's laughter grew louder. Each night, his sleep became deeper. The fear that once shadowed his face had lifted. And that, more than any verdict, told me I had chosen right. Teaching at the academy gave me a new purpose. My classroom wasn't about tactics or weapons proficiency. It was about leadership, the kind that doesn't come from rank or orders, but from integrity. I told my cadets, "You don't prove your worth by shouting. You prove it by standing still when others break." They listened, really listened. And one day, a young cadet stayed after class, his voice trembling. "Ma'am," he said, I thought I had to be tough to lead, but now I get it. Strength's not about never falling down. It's about knowing what you're standing back up for. That line stayed with me, because he was right. The uniform teaches resilience, but life teaches reason. And without reason, strength becomes noise. On weekends, Leo and I found new rituals. We'd hike along the foothills or sit under the old elm near our apartment, building model jets on a picnic blanket. Sometimes he'd ask about Afghanistan, not out of fear, but curiosity. I told him the truth. War isn't about winning. It's about coming back with your humanity intact. He'd nod in that quiet way children do when they understand more than they should. The true turning point came on career day at his school. I was just another parent waiting my turn, clipboard in hand, name tag slightly crooked. When the teacher asked Leo to introduce me, he stood a little taller and said, "This is my mom. She's a soldier. She used to fight far away. But now she's home. Fighting for me." The room went silent. Not out of pity, out of respect. And I couldn't hold back the tears. Not of pain, of pride. Every scar, every humiliation, every quiet moment of endurance. It all led here. To the look in my son's eyes. To the truth that needed no approval from anyone. On Leo's 8th birthday, I gave him the one thing that had guided me through every crossroad. My grandfather's brass compass. It was old, scratched, still bearing the faint smell of oil and dust. I placed it in his small hands. "This compass belonged to your great-grandfather," I told him. There'll be times when people try to tell you where to go, who to be. But remember, maps change. True North doesn't. It's in here. I tapped his chest. "Follow that and you'll never lose yourself." He nodded solemnly, clutching it as if it were the most sacred metal in the world. Months later, we climbed Pikes Peak before dawn. Just the two of us, bundled in layers, breath clouding in the cold. We sat together at the summit, sipping cocoa from a thermos, watching the sun edge over the horizon. The light spilled across the Rockies, warm and gold, chasing every shadow away. Leo leaned against me, whispering, "We did it, Mommy. We made it." And for the first time in years, I believed him. Not all wars are fought with guns. Some are fought in silence, with patience, dignity, and truth. And sometimes, the quietest soldier wins the loudest victory. Have you ever seen someone underestimated until they revealed who they truly were? Tell me in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe if you believe quiet strength is the most unshakable kind. We post new stories every day, each one a reminder. Respect the silent ones. They've already survived more than you know.